YouTube, this is Lindsay from Lindsay Reads. Today I'm going to be doing a tag video, the My Neck of the Woods tag. I was tagged by Tilly Shelf, and the tag was created by Kelly from Books I'm Not Reading. So for My Neck of the Woods, I chose to pick my home state of Virginia. I'm not currently living in that state, but oh, I wish I was. It's such a pretty state to live in, and it has a lot of history. And so I thought I would start out with talking about the different regions of Virginia and the region I'm from. So Virginia, here's a picture, and it's like the coastal area because Atlantic Ocean is here. So there's the coastal region, the Piedmont region, and the mountain region, the Appalachian Mountains. And I am from the Piedmont region, in a little town, well, not a little town, a little town, but the closest city would be Lynchburg or Charlottesville. And so I have a picture of the little town of Lynchburg, and in the background, it's on the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains, which you can see in the back. So a really pretty town. And Lynchburg is has a long history. It's an industrial city. The James River runs through it, and so there's a lot of industry through that, and the railroads. But currently, it's most known for the university, Liberty University, which is a massive Christian university that's like worldwide because it has like a what do you call it? Online learning, like online degrees, and so a lot of people get degrees from Liberty through the online degree. But it has a campus there. It was founded by Jerry Falwell, and he has written. Talk about this tag, how you're supposed to mention, 5 authors or 5 books set in Virginia. He has written many books, but I didn't include any of those. But yeah, so Jerry Falwell was from Lynchburg. I'm sure some of you recognize his name. So in this tag, I decided to do a mix-up of authors and books from or set in Virginia. And so I just want to show you this other picture. Since it's in the foothills of the Blue Ridge, where I grew up, so if you go to the Blue Ridge, which is like the mountain region, there's a really, really pretty area that I think if you're anywhere close to the area, you should visit it, especially during the fall season. It's called the Shenandoah Valley, and there's a Shenandoah National Park. It's called Skyline Drive, and so you actually drive through the valley, and it's gorgeous because on one side you have the Blue Ridge Mountains, and then on the other side you have the Appalachian Mountains. And so here's a picture of the Shenandoah Valley. You can see all the colors. Yeah, so it like dips in between, and there's lots of farmland in that area. Okay, so let's get into the books. It's really hard for me to narrow down the choices for the books set in Virginia because they have such a long history. For people, I don't know if you're not from the United States, you don't always know all the history, but Virginia was set up or established in 1607 with the Virginia colony, Jamestown, which was 1607. And it didn't become a state until later, but basically at the time of 1607, like the whole region of like the white settlement was called Virginia. And then over time, of course, it was whittled down to Virginia and West Virginia, and then it got the shape it does now because of the Civil War. The people in like the mountainous region didn't want to succeed from the Union, and so that's how Virginia and West Virginia came to be. So for the first book, I thought I'd go way back to the Native American time because I had a hard time choosing. So this might be a long video. I don't know. Okay, so the first book is 500 Nations by Alvin Josephi. And 500 Nations, this book, talks about many regions of America, and not just America, but also South America. But it does feature Virginia with, of course, Pocahontas and the Powhatans. And so if you want to learn about the Indians and Native Americans from the time period when Virginia was being established, this covers that time. Okay, so then I'm just gonna kind of go in chronological order of the time period of when these books are set or when they were written. So this next book, I decided to choose a book about Jamestown. I just read this book, and it was really, really good. Let me just flip this over so you can see. And this is just 1 year, 1619, Jamestown and the Forging of American Democracy by James Point. I read another book about Jamestown, but I can't remember the name. And I'm also planning to read another one this month or next month. Yeah, so from being from this area, I mean, I was always surrounded by history. And so that kind of like sparked my love of history, because Lynchburg has a lot of Civil War history in particular. Like, you can be driving down the streets and you'll see the sign saying, oh, the Civil War Trail is right over here, or there's a Civil War landmark over here. And actually, there is a park I used to go to as a kid, just randomly, I don't know why, but there's like a shed area in this park where they have the boat that carried Stonewall Jackson. When he died, they were transporting him from the James River, via the James River. And so the park I played in as a kid had the boat he was transported in just there outside. It's not preserved or anything. It has the boat that he was transported in. So Virginia has a love of history. So this next, sorry, I got off track a bit. This next book is about George Washington, because of course, when I'm talking about Virginia, there's, I think, 8 presidents that were from Virginia. And so I had to choose the first one. This is about George Washington, and it's Patriarch, George Washington and the New American Nation by Richard Norton Smith. This was a very good book. It talks mostly about his presidential years. He grew up in, he was in Mount Vernon, which is near DC, is where he's from. And this next one I wanted to talk about is Thomas Jefferson, because I grew up in Lynchburg, near Lynchburg, which is in the foothills of the Blue Ridge. And so Thomas Jefferson, his home, Monticello, is in Charlottesville, which is really close to Lynchburg, also in the foothills of the Blue Ridge. And so this book I wanted to mention was really well written. It's Thomas Jefferson, The Art of Power by John Meacham, and this won the Pulitzer Prize. And so he actually, not only does he have a house in Monticello, his plantation, he also has, or had, a summer vacation home in Lynchburg. And so I've actually never been there. I don't know if it's just me, but like, I think when you grow up in an area, you don't always go to see all of the sites, because you know the area, so you don't always go and see something that tourists would see. But I've wanted to visit his summer home, because I've been to Monticello a couple times. So this next book is a children's book I read as a kid, and it's set in colonial Virginia. And I'm sure a lot of you might recognize, at least maybe a lot of girls recognize it. It's the Felicity series, Meet Felicity, the American Girl series, and I was obsessed with these as a kid, because not only did they feature girls, children growing up in America, but it was all the different regions and timelines. And so this is one for Virginia. It's in the colonial America. Okay, now I'm moving forward to the Civil War era, because like I mentioned before, when I got ahead of myself, Lynchburg has a lot of Civil War history. And I wanted to mention, it was hard to choose for the Civil War era, but I chose the one I think was really well done. This one's Mr. Lincoln's Army by Bruce Catton, and this is the first book in the trilogy, The Army of the Potomac. And this is from the Union perspective, but it does, of course, feature Virginia heavily. And so if you want a good book to learn about the Civil War, you cannot go wrong with Bruce Catton. And this other book is from an author that actually is from Lynchburg, Douglas Southall Freeman. And let's see if I can get rid of this. And he wrote a 4-book series on Lee, and this is the abridged version of Robert E. Lee. I've actually read the first book in that series, the 4 books. I read the first one, but I just noticed he just kind of went on and on and on, and I was like, I don't really need every single detail It even included his report cards. I don't need every single detail about Lee, and so I thought the abridged version would be the way to go. He also wrote, I think it's like 7 books on George Washington. So Douglas Hopewell, he's from my area, Lynchburg, and so yeah. Then this other one I read last year, and it actually mentions Lynchburg in the book. It's like one. I think it's talking about 4 different areas from the Civil War, and Lynchburg is one of them. And this is The Thin Light of Freedom, The Civil War and Emancipation in the Heart of America by Edward Ayers. And this is all about like the culture of the Civil War, and of course mentions the battles of the Civil War, and it mentions emancipation in the title because it's also talking about slavery and race is also plays a part. So this last book that I'm going to mention for the Civil War is about Stonewall Jackson, because like I said, I mentioned his boat is at the park I played for as a kid, and this is a book I read recently. Rebel Yell, The Violent Passion and Redemption of Stonewall Jackson by S.C. Gwynn. And there's a famous book by Stonewall Jackson. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a biography that I've been wanting to read forever. I actually have it on my shelf, but I haven't got to it. I just happened to get to this one first. But he is from the Shenandoah Valley region that I had mentioned earlier. And so if I'm going to read a book about Civil War, then you're gonna see Stonewall Jackson mentioned quite a bit. So now I'm going towards authors who are from my area. Is actually Willa Cather. She is known for her the Great Plains books, and so O Pioneers or My Antonia, and so I'll have a picture of one of them. And so Great Plains, and it's in Nebraska where her books are set. But she actually was born and until the age of 10 lived in Virginia. So this is one of them, My Antonia. And I read all 3 books in this trilogy, and I really enjoyed them. I do plan on reading more of Willa Cather. I think I have 2 more books of hers on my shelf to read. So then this next book is set in Roanoke, which is about like 30 minutes from where I lived. And when I was reading this book, I could really visualize the area. And this is Pilgrim at Tinker Creek, and it's by Annie Dillard. And this is all about her observations in nature and what was going on through the seasons, and also like the psychology of her mind. She would expunge off on this one topic of some frog she was looking at, and all of a sudden she's talking about life and the meaning of life, and it was a really good mix-up of autobiography and nature and environment, and so yeah, this was set in Roanoke, and it's a nonfiction book. Okay, so this next one is also a nonfiction book going back to the Appalachian region. This is A Walk in the Woods by Bill Bryson. And not only does it include Virginia, it includes all of the Appalachian Trail, which is from Georgia all the way up to Maine. And so Virginia does play a part in this book. It was a really funny book. And so if you ever want to read a book about hiking, this would be a good book to pick up. Okay, so let's see. And so as I mentioned, Jerry Falwell, if you want to read a book about the Christian movement, and because Lynchburg is heavily evangelical, and so this book I thought I would mention The Evangelicals, The Struggle to Shape America by Francis Fitzgerald, and Jerry Falwell is mentioned, Billy Graham is mentioned, and that whole movement of including from way back when the evangelicals started, but the 1980s, it's really when Jerry Falwell took off. And the university was set up in 1976 or so. And so Lynchburg does play a part in that. So this last book, sorry for the deluge of book recommendations. I thought I just had to mention this one because a lot of this book talked about my region. I don't think it specifically mentions Lynchburg, but it mentions a lot of actually the small towns that I know. I just couldn't believe reading this book that they were included. It's The Unwinding, An Inner History of the New America by George Packer. And this, like I said, it not only features Lynchburg and the Virginia area, but it features a couple other regions. And it's all about, you know, America in crisis, because these like really poor areas that, you know, used to be, because a lot of the areas where I grew up were like heavily manufacturing and textile. Like I said, Lynchburg was an industrial city, but a lot of that business has gone to Mexico or overseas. And so these towns kind of like shut down basically because, you know, they haven't been renovated to, you know, more of like a tech city. And so a lot of the areas I know, you know, a lot of people are just destitute, where they don't have jobs. You know, they're living on Social Security, and it's a lot of poor people. And so this book really focuses on those regions. And so if you want like a more, this is like, of all the books I talked about, this one is more of like a current times book. Okay, so that is my neck of the woods tag. Sorry for all the rambles and all the offshoots. I've read a lot of books about Virginia, because I mean, if I like history, how can I not read books about my home state? And so, so I thought for this I would tag some people that haven't done the tag yet. Sorry, one second. Sorry for the disruption. My dog had to go out for a potty break. I wanted to tag 3 people that haven't done the tag. At least I hope not. I tried to check real quick and see if they hadn't. So this a sampler girl. What's the name of this one? Wright Reads Books, and Rainey. Let's see. One second. Let me get the name right. Was Rainy Day Books? What is the name? Sorry for the delay. And me looking down. Let's make sure I have the name right. I think it was Rainy Day Reads or Rainy Day Books. Rainy Day Reads. That's the third one. So those 3 people, I tag you. So thank you. See you soon, BookTube.